right, I'm going to try to figure this out, make sure I'm working it right too, so hopefully it works good for me. First time I'm giving this this speech on who we are, so you have to bear with me if I stutter a little bit. But the Elkridge Heritage Society, we'll get into who we are in a second. Is anybody in the room, by raise of hands, know who we are? Anybody know we existed? Okay. That's kind of what I figured. I know there's a couple people that do. So the Elkridge Heritage Society is dedicated to the history of Elkridge. That's what we do. So I'm going to go ahead and speak a little bit about myself and how I got involved, and then get into who we are. My name is Craig Poole. As she mentioned, I'm the president of the Elkridge Heritage Society. My family, I got involved about 3 years ago, became president then, and the Heritage Society wasn't doing very well. I'll talk to that in a little bit more in a second. But I got involved because my family's been in Elkridge for over 100 years. My family is, there's a large Polish contingent in Elkridge, and my family came from Baltimore in the 1920s, 23 I think it was. We came into Elkridge, and all of us have never left. A lot of my family is still there. And the Arringtons here know that, know half my family. So I'm going to get moving here. So who are we? So we asked that question ourselves about 3 years ago when our new board got all together. And we sat down and we did some brainstorming, and obviously we had our original bylaws. And we ended up really closely matching what the bylaws actually stated from when the society was originally established back in the 80s, actually. We'll get in that in a second. But who are we? We are a small group where our mission is to repair, care for the Elkridge Heritage Society's headquarters, the Brumbaugh House, raise money, continue operations, build membership, and share Elkridge heritage and history through events, and to maintain a museum for public viewing. The last part is something that is surprising a lot of people that we're doing, and I'll get into that in a second. And how we came into the Brumbaugh House and how we came to be. So how were we founded? There was a small committee in 1976 that got together during the 200th anniversary of the United States, which is kind of cool because now we're celebrating the 250th anniversary, right? So it's kind of neat to be talking about how we came to be, when it was the bicentennial. But a small group got together to create this book. I have a couple copies up here for anybody who would like to look at them. But they got together to create this book, and that small group was like 3 or 4 people were the beginnings of the Elkridge Heritage Society. So that was back in 1976. I was actually only 1 year old. So fast forward a few years to 1982, and the society had grown enough that they started renting a space on Main Street. Not Main Street, Ellicott City, Main Street, Elkridge. So 1982, we came to be, and we started to grow. And then we get into how we got into the Brumbaugh House. Since nobody here knows who we are, I'm mostly guessing nobody here knows who Dr. Brumbaugh is, too. Is that a fair statement? So in Elkridge, Dr. Brumbaugh practiced medicine for about 50 years. He was our one and only doctor in Elkridge. His office was in his house and was directly across the street from our local pharmacy. And Dr. Brumbaugh, we have a lot of history on him, obviously, because we were in his house, and we wanted to dedicate part of the house to that. Dr. Brumbaugh was quoted as not knowing how many babies he actually ever delivered. It is believed he had delivered over 600 babies, and all of them being Elkridge babies, and they're referred to as the Brumbaugh babies now. My parents, my mom, and my aunt are both Brumbaugh babies. I think there's one here. And so the Brumbaugh babies, and so they're the generation older than me. I'm 51, so it's usually the generation right before me that were the Brumbaugh babies. So there's a lot of people in Elkridge that have fond memories of Dr. Brumbaugh, and Dr. Brumbaugh was also a pharmacist, so there's a lot of crazy stories about him mixing up his own concoctions and having his own needle that he used for everybody and sterilizing in between. It's like there's a lot of, you talk to anybody that was a Brumbaugh baby or saw him as a doctor, there's a lot of stories.
He survived.
Yes. There you go. So Dr. Brumbaugh in 1986 passed away. And when he passed away, the Elkridge Heritage Society and the Elkridge Rotary wanted to maintain his legacy. So together, the Elkridge Heritage Society and the Rotary bought Dr. Brumbaugh's house in 1986. And at that point, that's when the Elkridge Heritage Society moved into Dr. Brumbaugh's house. We've been there since. And in 2011, the Elkridge Heritage Society did some things to create income. There was an apartment actually in the top part of his house that was rented out. And over the years, the Elkridge Heritage Society was eventually able to buy out the Rotary, and then it was conveyed to us in 2011. So our recent years, I was trying to figure out a nice way of saying this. Just like here right now, nobody knows who we were, right? With a lot of, I knew who we were because I grew up in Elkridge, and a lot of the older Elkridge residents knew who the Elkridge Heritage Society was. What we found in recent years is nobody knew who we were. That we had no social media presence. We weren't doing a lot. They weren't doing a lot of events, and so that's what we're trying to do now. We're trying to bring the Heritage Society back since 3 years ago when we got involved. So the society in 21, when COVID hit, it almost collapsed, and that's when I got involved. And we had very little money in the bank, and we went into like a big spree of this is who we are, help us please. And honestly, Howard County hurt us. And in 23 and 24, we received 2 very large PAYGO grants from the county, and those grants helped us immensely to get out of the holes we were in. We weren't financially upside down, but we were, I was about to have to come out of money in my own pocket to keep us going, type scenario. So the PAYGO grants helped us stabilize. The initial ones helped us stabilize. The second one allowed us to do what I'm about to talk about a little bit more in the next slides. So when as soon as I got involved, we knew we had a roof leak over Dr. Brumbaugh's office, and the plaster, the ceiling was falling down. It was actually falling down on all of his office area. And so we knew we had a roof leak there going into this, and that was one of the major things we needed to get fixed. But the other thing that happened, right, we got involved, is we had a pipe break, and then we had water problems, and we had water problems in the basement. And all of a sudden it was like, just like anybody with a house, when things roll, they start to roll at you, and the cost of everything goes to the roof. So now, we're in charge of taking care of this house, and we don't have any funds. So the county came in, and we did our best, to do repairs. And what the second PAYGO grant allowed us to do, and it was a concern that a lot of us newer people came and had, is we had a lot of really cool documentation, historic documents, historic things in our possession, and the house didn't have any air conditioning. It had no HVAC control. And those of you that are involved with historical type societies know how bad that is for any kind of documents you have. So that was one of the big things we were really trying to figure out how to get there, but it's $100,000 expense, $80,000 expense that we're staring at. The county second PAYGO grant allowed us to put air conditioning in the house. And between the 2 grants, we were able to fix our water problems. We were able to get our air conditioning in the house. And all of a sudden we got the house stabilized. And then those same PAYGO grants, along with some other smaller grants that we received, allowed us to build out a museum and repair the interiors of the house. So what you're seeing here in the pictures right now is Dr. Brumbaugh's office. This is his office. It was the way it was when we walked in. We put it exactly back the way it was. This was his waiting room. Both these rooms bring back fond memories to anybody that comes into the house. It's really it's fun times when we have our open houses and listen to people just talk about the past and history of Dr. Brumbaugh, and they remember sitting on the green couch. They remember their brother knocking at the door to get in, and the lines out the door and stuff, and it was really neat. So it's really cool. So other repairs we've done throughout the house, and what we've done is we've taken the entire first floor and we've created a museum out of it. And I highly recommend you come and see what we have, because some of the stuff is really neat. And we've got a couple rooms. Let me see. So this is talking about the renovation still. So, we replaced the HVAC, we redid all the wood floors, and then, we just did a lot of work in the house. What you're seeing in these pictures here, and it talks about in the next slide, I think a little bit, is these are 2 other rooms we've created. The upper room doesn't look like a lot of room on the floor yet now, but we have more stuff in there already. But this one, when we first reopened the house, we call that our map room. It's basically all the maps of Elkridge from when it was Elkridge Landing to now. So we have some really neat maps of like Moore's Morning Choice, and it's just it's neat to see the history of Elkridge. And like Ellicott City and like Baltimore, most people don't know this, Elkridge actually was, we predate Ellicott City. Elkridge was established in 1734, and after 1734, after it was established and they started to build the town up, like Baltimore and Ellicott City, it actually burned to the ground. There are very few structures that made it out of that time frame. Coming out of that time frame, that's when it became Elkridge Landing. In Elkridge Landing, we were a seaport at one point. So the river was so deep that we were a seaport. That's how we became the town that we were. And then later, I wasn't going to get into much history in Elkridge. Later on, we became a train town because we became a railroad and provided up there. So our map room has a lot of that really neat information on it. This room is actually really neat to me. We call it our business room, and we have displays for a lot of the businesses that were there during like the early 1800s and 1900s. We have a lot of information from the Elkridge Pharmacy that had been there since the early 1900s. We have ledgers from the Elkridge Pharmacy from that time frame. There's other businesses in Elkridge. There was one called Davis and Hempel, for instance. They did a lot of stuff for the war efforts, and then later on made mechanical pencils, and then they also made screws, and that was also down Race Road. We have a lot of history on those older businesses. Then we also have some information on some more of the modern history. That was one of the things that we wanted to bring into there, was some more of the modern history. And so we have stuff like, we have a bag from the Elkridge Bank, which is now, the bank's still there, but it's not the Elkridge Bank anymore. So we have some neat stuff in there that, for me being 50, it's things I remember as a kid, and I feel like it brings back a lot of nostalgia for people. So I really like that room actually a lot. It's my favorite room there. So getting into, Dr. Brumbaugh's office and what we did there, we talked about already, the map room, the business room. We also have a separate outbuilding. It was a carriage house. It's where horse and carriages went at the time frame in the late 1800s, early 1900s. It's a separate building for us. For us, it's more of a meeting space, but we also have some Elkridge sports memorabilia in there also, so it's kind of neat to see the sports history. So some other things we're doing right now, and we've been added and working on. In our kitchen, the kitchen is renovated. We have it's not a full kitchen. We have a sink and a fridge for when we host events. But we wanted to put some things in there that were lively and fun, and we recently had, most people don't know about Elkridge, but Elkridge, we used to have an annual carnival in Elkridge when we had the drive-in. And so somebody recently donated all of these original artwork signs from the Elkridge Carnival that are really bright and colorful, and we thought that was a good place. So we have a lot of some of that kind of neater history we just added to our displays since we opened. And then the latest thing we literally just opened during our last open house is we created what we call our people room. This is upstairs. Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. Was I loud enough before? I was hoping I was. No. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry about that. So we recently created our people room, and what the people room is it's people that we wanted to make sure that we didn't want any modern people. We wanted people that more recently passed away or older passed away people. We wanted to dedicate this room to those people. So we have a lot of history on what I'll call like some of the founders, like the Calverts and the Dorseys. They were all property owners in Elkridge when it was established. And there's also some names that surprised me when I got involved, like the Earps actually. The Earps owned a lot of property in Elkridge too. So we have some history on them. But we also have some more history on modern people that were just very prominent in Elkridge that people remember. So we did reach out to the community to help us decide who we were going to put in this room. But I think we have almost 60 people in this room now dedicated to the history of those people who have done a lot for the community. So that's the newest thing we've done. And then it's not on here yet, but we are currently working on what we're calling our landmark room. And so we have a lot of information on the businesses in the business room, which are also kind of landmarks, but we realized we didn't have any history up on any of the schools or churches or any of the historic houses of Elkridge. So we're working on that right now. That should be open later this fall. That'll be the final room that we have in the house that we can put out as museum displays. for now, but our plan is to continually rotate things in to keep it fresh. One of the things that we were able to do with the renovations also was to build some space so we could actually bring in more items and artifacts for anybody who wants to donate them. So we were able to build some more room out for that. So I hit on the landmark room, getting ahead of myself, and talk about rotation and new stuff in. So, oh, sorry. Yes, sorry about that. So some of the events we have coming up, I'm almost done here. Some of our upcoming events that we have coming up, we are going to do a community yard sale. It'll be announced here shortly. A lot of these will be announced shortly. We're still nailing down some of the dates. Last year we did an Elkridge Trivia Night at Daniels in Elkridge, and it was a lot of fun during the summertime, and it was neat because it was like, a lot of people think they know a lot about Elkridge, and then we throw some curveballs at them, My favorite question last year there was, it was about the Elkridge Fire, and it was about the Elkridge Fire and what date it was, but then the other dates were like the fire in Baltimore, the date of the fire in Baltimore, so it was kind of a trick question. It was fun though. Another thing that we have that we're going to start doing is we have some donors that, like most historical societies that donate to us a good bit. We're going to do a donors night for them. And then the next one's a really neat thing. You'll see this on our calendar soon. I think it's next in September. The Daughters of American Revolution reached out to us, and they were involved with the Lafayette, I can't remember exactly the foundation, but there's if anyone knows General Lafayette, he was part of the French contingent in America during the Revolutionary War, who helped our troops basically beat the English. So that he is a very prominent figure in the American Revolutionary War, and there's a tree, I think it's in somewhere in Pennsylvania, where he was wounded, and that tree still exists today. And so this foundation dedicated to Lafayette are handing out saplings to different places, and we have one of those saplings in our yard at the Heritage Society now. So we're going to be doing a tree dedication based around that, and I believe that we may have even French Embassy and some other people coming to this thing. It's kind of awesome, actually, being the event. And then we have the passport for Elkridge. I have this. I know she was talking about their challenge coins, but we have about 6 or 9 historical landmarks on this, and we are asking anybody that wants to, if you go around and snap pictures of all these things and bring it into one of our open houses, you'll get one of our challenge coins. Our challenge coins have the viaduct on one side and then our logo on the other, so they're really kind of cool. So that is the passport to Elkridge, and it's also on our website there also. And that's what this is. That's what this is also. So I have brought a couple of these up here because it also has a QR code if you want to take it and donate to us. So again, how can you help, right? So I'm sure a lot of you heard this before. I'm talking about all the grants we're getting, right? A lot of the grants that we can receive are for capital type projects. It's very rare that it's hard to find grants that will support our day-to-day bills, is what I'll call them. And then for our society, we're not cheap, but we're not expensive. It costs us about $8,000 a year to run. Between our insurances and honestly, like everybody else, we have bills to pay. We have power and electric, water. We have everything that comes with owning a house, property taxes. So it takes us about $8,000 a year to run. So one of the best ways you can actually help us is our membership and donations really go towards our operating expenses. And what we're doing with the grants is going to what we're doing with building out our facility. So if you would like to donate, QR code is here. I'll come back to this one over here. Also, as the Howard County Historical Society was saying, one of the best ways you can help us is when we're having events. Follow us on Facebook, and we're having events. One of the best things you can do is actually forward those events on to your friends and family, because even just getting our name out there, it helps our society, obviously. And please follow us. And then the last thing I do want to talk about, we have our website, and one of the things that we also realize is, if something happens to the Brumbaugh House, where we have all of this documentation, there's always a concern, right, that we'll lose all this stuff. So we've slowly started digitizing some of the items we have. So we have a database at our elkridgeheritage.org website. It's free. It's there. It's not behind a paywall or anything, at least not yet. So, but we have a lot of history there. And one of the coolest things I like to talk about that I use when I do a quarterly letter from the president is there was a newspaper in Elkridge that ran from, I think, the late 70s through the early mid-90s. It was called The Viaduct. And we have a copy of every single viaduct, and we were able to get those scanned in, and they're all available here. And it's really interesting because, you know, when we read those viaducts over time, it talks about where Elkridge was, you know, in the 70s and 80s, and what the county said they were going to do, what they weren't going to do. So it's, you know, while it's not political, if you read through it, you'd be surprised what was supposed to be there by now. I'll just say that. So. And then that's all I really have. The last thing I was going to mention is I mentioned our, you know, our museum that we have. We're open the third Saturday of every month from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So come visit us, come see what we have. We have some really neat stuff. And I hope everybody can come out and see us. So I don't know if anybody has any questions for me. That's all I got. So, you know.
Doctor's house on Main Street?
Yeah, we're right on Main Street.
Right on Main Street.
Yep.
What year was it built?
The house, we have a complete history on it. It dates back, don't quote me on this, I'd have to go back and look. I'm not the historian, so I think it was early 1920s. The house is actually really interesting because it started off as just a one-story dwelling, for lack of better words, and it was probably only like 12 by 12. So we actually have a basement, and the basement's really neat because it's like, you know, we have wood, like trees, as the floor joist for that part of the house. And since that time frame, the house was like expanded on in different time eras. So we actually had a historian come out and help us piece together the history of the house, and we have that there. It's actually right as you walk in. And so it's really neat. It's like the house actually does have different feels to it as you walk through it too, also because of the different time frames it was built. You know, it has different kind of architecture. It's a neat building. Anyone else?
You mentioned the Earp family.
Mm-hmm.
You said Elkridge. Years ago, I read somewhere that Wyatt Earp somehow came from Maryland. Is that true, or is he? Because I'm now that I.
So we're not sure. I've actually, you know, internally at the Heritage Society, we've kind of talked about that. We have not found anything that ties Wyatt Earp to their family in Elkridge. There are rumors that it's the same family, but we haven't been able to find anything concrete tying Wyatt Earp to Elkridge.
I know Earp was from Maryland. Wasn't there many of them? I read that a long time ago.
Yeah, a lot of the maps we have in the map room actually have their name on them. Yeah, they were property owners in Elkridge.
And there were Earps living in the county. One of them was the assistant head of the fire department, the Howard County Fire Department, for years.
Yeah.
At that point, the family was living around, I want to say, the Savage area, so there may be some still around.
Yeah,
to trace.
and you mentioned the fire department. You know, Elkridge was a volunteer fire department. We don't have any displays on it yet, but we've done some homework on it. Elkridge was actually the second fire department in Howard County. Ellicott City was actually the first, which is ironic because if you look at the station numbers that the county calls it, Elkridge is number 1 and Ellicott City is number 2 now. But Elkridge, there's a lot of really neat history of the Elkridge Fire Department, the volunteer fire department, and specifically there's a fire engine that everybody calls Daisy. It was our first fire engine in Elkridge. Daisy was just a truck that was bought, and the local community wanted a fire department, but they couldn't buy the parts to build a fire truck from the fire company, so they wouldn't let them do that. So Daisy was put together with parts from other local fire departments in the basement of a house, and that was our first fire truck. And from that point forward, Elkridge had a fire department. That's kind of neat. I know some of the history. I don't know it all. Anybody else have any other questions?
You know, if the old Guinness Brewery, which is there now, that's still Elkridge. There's the old Coward, I think, distillery. Was that a big employer for the folks in Elkridge?
It was, yeah, it was. Ironically, is I do construction management for a living. I actually built Guinness. So I know a lot of history of that property because of that. So it was originally Calvert whiskey in the 1920s, and all the buildings that were there dated back to the 1920s. Later on, it became, I knew it as a kid as Seagram's because it was Seagram 7 when I was growing up. And then I didn't know this until we got there, but they were aging Captain Morgan there, and now, of course, Guinness is there. So, but it was a big employer for Elkridge, it was, yeah. And technically, actually, that's horrible, but yeah. It's a relay. Actually, it's relay. It's relay. And we have a lot of history in relay too, just because we're just across the river from each other. Relay is an interesting town too, and I didn't know this until I got involved. But Relay was named Relay because before we had steam engines and trains pulling the cars, they used to use horses to pull the train cars, and they used to have what they called relay stations where they would have to switch out the horses. So that's how Relay got its name. They were a relay station for the horses. Yeah. Yep. Anybody have any other questions?
I just want to comment. I think you've done an awful lot in a short amount of time. I'm impressed, and I'm interested in
Yeah, one of the things we realized, when we got involved is, how do we build excitement for us to help us to build the membership, to build these things, Putting on events takes effort. It takes a lot of effort, and we're trying to do that while we're doing all these other things. So now we're starting to be able to concentrate more on the event side of things. But we wanted a product. We knew we knew we had all of this really, I'd say cool, this is my generation, really cool stuff, right? And it was just neat. I'd be walking around and find different things. I found my granddad's report cards from St. Augustine School. My granddad's and my aunt's, and they were not good students. But I have a picture of them in my phone. So we even have a lot of stuff behind the scenes that we don't even have on display yet. So that's not on display yet. So.
I am amazed. I'm a Brumbaugh baby, and the office and the waiting room, I have not been there yet, but I can tell you I could walk into that and remember having every one of my shots sitting on that little bed in his office.
Yeah, and I told this story earlier when we got involved. I walked into Dr. Brumbaugh's office, and he was a pharmacist, and there was a cabinet in his room, and it was just like a curio cabinet for like plates and stuff, but it was like a locking glass, double glass doors, and it was everything he used to make drugs for all his patients. And initially, right out of the gates, I was thinking, do we have a problem here? And so we worked with Howard County, and the fire department came out and used it as a training exercise, and they tested all of the drugs that were in this cabinet, and we found out that they were inert, most of them. They were like 2 or 3 bottles they took, but we were able to keep everything else. So I was worried, when we opened this up from a museum and people started to see we have drugs here, it's, thing. So we were a bit worried about that. It was really cool because we were able to, verify we were good. And so we have all the original bottles and all the original labels on them and everything. It's really kind of neat. We have a lot of these doctor bags, and he had actually a couple doctor bags. So we have one on display inside the, almost like a history of medical history now, on display in his lobby area. And then obviously we have some stuff representing him when he was sitting at his desk. So.
And he made house calls.
He did. And up into don't quote me on this, it was the early 90s when he stopped, 86 he died. It was like 82, I think, that he stopped practicing. But even then, he was only charging $10 a visit. When most people remember him only charging $2 to $5 a visit, and every time he upped his price because he had to, because the insurance companies were making him. That was the only reason he was upping his prices. He hated telling the community that he had to raise his prices. So we actually in the waiting room. I go back to, I don't know if it's in the picture. There's a table, and we had one of his last original sign that says, $10 fee. So it says it's there. We have it still. Yeah. It's really neat. Yeah.
I'll just add that you're very fortunate to have that kept everything together for the Dr. Brumbaugh. when I was doing research out in West Friendship, there was a local doctor that same kind of thing, delivered the babies for, decades. And when he died, his, and I was told this by the children, the mother threw everything out. And they were just heartbroken because, all the instruments and everything is just completely lost.
He was so beloved that before he passed away, there was a big community gathering, thanking him for his service. And so there's a lot of newspaper articles about him. Like one of the pictures was from a newspaper article. And the Elkridge community loved him so much that when he retired, they got a billboard thanking him for his service. It's like, it's really neat.
Somebody has to have the foresight to do that, though.
Yeah. And we even have some of his awards. So he got like an award. I don't remember what it's for, but it's a gigantic needle. It's like this big, It's funny.
Well, you were fortunate that the Rotary Club,
Yes.
because the Heritage Society was relatively tiny. But the Rotary Club was very, very active, still is. But they came in and they actually supported him they actually gave him a car in the late part of his practice. But the fact that they were there is probably the reason that everything is there. And the Brumbaugh did not have children, so there was nobody to inherit the house and clear it out, for better or worse. So.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So we have a lot of obviously history in Dr. Brumbaugh. We have a lot of history on Elkridge in general. We have some really neat pictures of the viaduct, and on the relay side, there was a viaduct hotel. Most people don't know that. There was actually a train station and hotel on the relay side of the viaduct. We have some really neat paintings of that. And, we even have some pictures of it before it burned down. It actually burned down it was there until like the 50s, the remnants of it. So it was there until the 50s. So we have some pictures of that too. It's really neat.
Is the Elkridge Furnace Inn an old building or is it new?
Oh no, Furnace Inn is an old building.
It's an old building.
Yeah. So the Weckers who own the Furnace Inn, they have a lot of history on the Furnace Inn themselves. We actually don't have, for us, we don't have much, but for us, we almost feel like we don't need it because the Weckers are such good keepers of their history that they have their own history, and I'm pretty sure if something ever happens to them, we would probably inherit it. Yeah. We do have a plate from one of the original furnaces there, though, which is kind of neat. So we have some stuff, but it's not a lot. Anyone else?
I got another one. How did Elkridge get the name? Because
There is a lot of rumors. Because it was actually established as, if you go back into history, in 1734, it was the State Assembly established it actually as Janssentown. That's what we were originally established as. And then somewhere along the lines in the early 1800s, it became known as Elkridge Landing. Because we were landing. It was 3 words, Elk, Ridge, Landing. Now we're just one word, Elkridge. But the rumor is that somebody saw an elk. There were a bunch of elk in the area, and obviously we're down in a valley there, and there's ridges around us. So there used to be elk, and that's how it got its name. But nobody, I don't think, has ever been given the rights to who named it. So, to our knowledge, it just eventually got named Elkridge Landing.
I was under there were a lot of elk. I mean, Elkton, and but I was under the impression that like the whole ridge, like where Catonsville and everything is, that was all the Elk Ridge. Somehow you guys ended up with the name, but
So Elkridge. So when we're doing our history for what most people call Elkridge, we are doing a lot more in-depth looking for Elkridge Landing. Because you are correct. Elkridge was a very large area. It spanned all the way up the Patapsco past Ilchester, It was a gigantic area that was known as Elkridge. You can see it on some of the maps we have where it's like Elkridge, but then it's Elkridge Landing. So a lot of those areas have become, like you said, Catonsville and different parts of the counties. So, yeah. And Elkridge Landing, the surprise, I think a lot of people here probably knew this already, that we were a seaport. A lot of people don't know that. But it surprises a lot of people that the river was that big and that deep. But the ships couldn't go much past Elkridge. There was, at the time, somewhere between Elkridge and Ellicott City, there was an area called the Great Patapsco Falls. It was basically it was rock and waterfalls that were keeping the ships from going the rest of the way up the river. So it's nobody knows exactly where it is. It's kind of on our to-do list to try to figure out. So there's a lot of things on our to-do list. Like we think we know roughly where the landing was, but we're not sure. We're trying to get that all figured out ourselves. So yeah. There's a lot of things in the background that we're working on. Like, and honestly, like you asked me about the history of the house until 2 years ago. If you would ask me that question 2 years ago, I wouldn't have had an answer. Yep. That was one of the things.
You're a Brumbaugh baby, though.
I am not, actually. I am not.
He was still living when you were born, correct?
He
still
was.
practiced?
He was. I was born in '75. He was in practice till like early '80s. But the rumor was that in mid '70s that he was going to retire. So my parents decided we probably should get a different doctor if he's going to retire. So
Yeah, everybody did.
yeah. My mom was a Brumbaugh baby, and so was my aunt. I have a lot of family members that were.
Many of them were born in homes, I assume, back in the 20s and 30s.
No, a lot of hospital babies. Mostly St. Agnes, I think.
Lots of
Yeah.
work.
Bon Secours,
Lots of
yep.
work, yeah.
Yep. Any other questions? We actually have a cool picture. It's not all of them, but in the lobby, it's a picture when we did an event. Not us, the society before we got involved did an event for the Brumbaugh babies, and we have this picture. It probably has 200 people's pictures on it. And it's like a lot of the older Elkridge people can sit there and look at it, and you can see they pick out the people there. It's kind of like Where's Waldo for some people. Neat. Yeah. Anything else? All right. Come visit us. That's all I got. So I don't know who I'm passing this on to.